here. It's 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 here. As you can tell from the intro, TrueNAS Scale is finally here. Now, I know a lot of you are thinking, I've been using TrueNAS Scale for months. Get with the times, old man. Yes, while TrueNAS Scale has been in beta for a while, as of February 22nd, 2022, Scale is now released for full production. I used Scale a few times while it was back in beta, and while I quite enjoyed it, there were still some things to work on. For the record, I'm a huge fan of TrueNAS Core, and it's actually my main NAS operating system. However, being FreeBSD based, it doesn't really make for the best hypervisor operating system. So why is Scale any different? Well, it's based on Debian Linux, which opens the door for KVM, LXC containerization, and probably most importantly, Docker. So let's go ahead and walk through the installation process, general setup, getting services running, and discuss what I like and what can be improved on. But first, subscribe in the next 14.6 seconds to receive 500 raid hour points redeemable in any of my live streams for a virtual high five. Okay, let's go ahead and get started. First step of getting Scale installed is to put on the official TrueNAS merch. 1 second. Oh, I'm doing this off camera. You guys are a bunch of perverts. Ugh. My channel hasn't plateaued enough to stoop down to OnlyFans level, but maybe one day. Much better. Check it out. It's actually a pretty cool shirt. Guaranteed to get you a date or your money back. Watch this. Honey, what is your favorite shirt that I own?
TrueNAS Scale.
See? All right, the first real step of getting TrueNAS Scale running is to create a bootable USB using the ISO from the TrueNAS website. Just plug it into your device, which I have down here, if you know what I mean. All right, let's go ahead and boot from our USB. Yes, we want to install. Now the installation process for TrueNAS Scale is relatively straightforward. I've done it a couple of times. You'll see here on stream, it's actually really easy to get the initial setup complete. Yep, install. Here you can select which drive you want to install to. You can actually select multiple if living next to a train track. So here you can select which drives you want to install to. You can select multiple ones if you want for redundancy, but in my case, I'm only going to select one. I have an NVMe drive in here. Let's select that with spacebar, enter, okay. Upgrading with now fresh install, format the boot device, sure. Now it only asked me those things because I already had TrueNAS Scale installed on here. You won't get that. You will just have to enter the password. Create swap, you can choose not to. There's really no point not to create a swap partition. This will just take over if you run out of RAM. If you have a crap ton of RAM or a small boot disk, then don't, but in most cases, it doesn't hurt to create one. All right, so this is gonna run through the installation process, reboot a couple of times, and I will see you in a few minutes. So that took about 5 or so minutes. Like I said, it was really simple, really fast, and when you're done, you are greeted with this interface, which most importantly tells you what IP address your TrueNAS GUI can be reached at. You also have some options in here to configure your network, change passwords, access the Linux or TrueNAS CLIs, reboot and shut down. But what you're going to want to do is now access the GUI. So let's do that. All right, here we are in the web GUI. Now we will just log in using the password we created earlier with the username root. And just like that, we are in. So I guess this is a good time to tell you the specs on the machine that I'm using. Luckily, you can see it right here. We have an Intel Xeon E5 2650, which is an 8-core 16-thread processor. We have 32 gigs of ECC RAM. We have 4 2-terabyte hard drives, 1 64 gigabyte SSD, and the NVMe boot drive. So yeah, those are the specs, and here is the dashboard that you will see. It looks very similar to TrueNAS Core, maybe a little updated. I do like that you can now reorder and configure this. So if we go to configuration, we can check what we'd like to see here. I do wish they would include some other things like your virtual machines, your apps, the statuses of those. That would be very good to see in your main dashboard. But for now, perfectly fine. So we're just gonna go ahead and turn help off because we're not a pleb. Actually am a pleb, but I just wanna seem cool. Now it's telling me updates are available. I don't know why. This is the brand new version that has just been released. I tried to do the updates and it was like, no. Yeah, I don't know what's going on there. So the first thing that's jumping out to me over here on the sidebar is that this is a much better settings menu and configuration than in Core. It seems easier to use and a little bit more simplified, and I quite enjoy it. So the first thing we're going to want to do is go into storage and configure a pool. So obviously we have no pools here. Let's go ahead and create one. And here you can see all the drives that are available. Here's that SSD and our 4 hard drives. So what we're going to do is select our 4 hard drives. I don't know why. Let's actually do this so that it's not all weird. Okay, cool. And we will send that over to a data VDEV. And then down here, it's going to give you the options. So we can do a stripe, which would be RAID 0. We obviously don't want to do that. Mirror, RAID Z would be 1 parity drive. RAID Z2 would be 2. For a lot of people, RAID Z is perfectly fine up to about 6 or so drives. Anything bigger than that, probably go RAID 2 or RAID Z2. Yeah, this looks good. Let's give it a name. We'll call it Storage Boy. Create. Sure. Create pool. And the immediate thing that's awesome about ZFS is that when you create any type of redundant pool, it's going to take probably like 30 seconds, maybe a minute, compared to if you're doing like MDA, DM, RAID, or any other type of RAID configurations. It can take a long time. And I think in my Open Media Vault and in my Unraid video, you'll see that it took hours, if not days, to do my RAID 5 configuration. So yeah, this is much better. And it's done. That took less than a minute. Awesome. We are set up and good to go with our storage pool. So the next step is to set up shares, because obviously if you're using this as a NAS, you'll want to access it. So we have to set up shares. First thing you'll want to actually do is go down here into, where is it? Credentials, local users, and we are going to create an SMB user so that we can use SMB to access it. Yeah, okay, thanks for your advice. Go ahead and add full name, RAID. Let's throw my last name in there. Okay, R Owl, I like that. Rowell. Password, you'll never guess it. Email, no. If you want to assign a custom user ID, go ahead. You can assign it to a group. We didn't create any groups yet. You can give it a home directory if you're about that life. We won't be doing that either. This is just a simple account for Samba access. So by default, Samba authentication is checked down here. I don't think that's the case in Core. I like that they included this. Everything looks good. Save. All right, there we are, Mr. Rowell. Perfect. The next thing we're going to want to do is create a data set within our storage pool. This is basically specifying a directory of sorts that we want to use as the base directory of our Samba share. So we'll go back into here, click on the 3 little buttons next to our storage boy, add data set, give it a name. We'll call this one Big SMB, all uppercase, just how I like it. What? Okay, there's settings down here you can walk through. I'm not gonna walk through every single setting in here. This video would be 10 hours long, but go ahead and adjust the settings as you see fit. Everything looks pretty standard. We're good. The only thing we're going to change is share type from generic to SMB. Click save. And now we can finally go into the shares configuration. I like this much better than the way they have implemented it in Core. This is much cleaner, much easier to use, much easier to understand. So obviously we want to create an SMB share. So under SMB shares, click add. It's going to ask for a path. So we'll go down into Storage Boy and then we should see our data set, big SMB. Give it a name. By default, it will just use the name of the data set. You can change this if you want. Give it a description. All right, let's look at the advanced options. Anything here, allow guest access if you don't want any permissions on it or anything, but yeah, we will leave it as is and click save. So since this is the first one and we haven't enabled SMB, it's gonna ask us to enable. We'll do that. Now the last step, back into storage. Here's our big SMB. Click on those three little dots. We could have done this before, but now go to view permissions and edit. And now here we will be able to adjust how this is accessed, and we want to go ahead and add an item. It's going to ask if you want to specify a user, an owner, or group. I find it easier to use either user or group. In this case, we will just do user. We will select the one we just created, Mr. Rowell. Allow, basic, we're going to give it full control. And yeah, that looks good. Save access control list. And just like that, we should have access to this through SMB. So let's test that out. We will go to our IP address /big SMB. It's going to ask for our username password, which was Rowell. Just like that, we have big SMB ready to go. But cool. Yeah, basically you're set up and ready to go for a simple NAS, but that isn't all the new features, the new cool features of TrueNAS Scale, which is Linux based. A big thing is virtualization and running services and apps. So we'll get to there in a second, I promise. One last thing I wanted to get to was this data protection section. This is awesome. This isn't available in Core. It basically takes all the protections for your data, whether that's smart tasks on your hard drives or replications or snapshots or whatever, and puts it in one easy to manage location. This is awesome right here. So scrub tasks, by default, it will set up an automatic scrub task. You can modify this, add more, adjust the duration of it or the frequency of it. Snapshots, here you'll probably want to add snapshots. So you can select a data set. If you just want to do a specific data set, or if you want to do your entire pool, you can do that. We'll say we want to take a snapshot of our SMB share. Can we do 1 day? 1 day. Naming scheme, that looks fine. Daily. Okay, yeah, change this. Cool. And click save. Now we have a snapshot every day that will make sure that if something happens to our Samba share directory, we can revert it. Replication, another cool thing. This will make it easy to back up any data set or pool to another TrueNAS instance, which I do have running, so we can go ahead and set that up. So source location, this system, and select the source. Again, we really want to make sure that Samba directory is backed up. So let's use that again. Destination, different system. SSH connections, create one. And we'll call this main core. Semi-automatic, which is for TrueNAS Core only, which is what I'm running. URL, the username and password to access your system. Private key, if you have one already, use that, but if not, just generate a new one. And cipher, so this will be standard, fast, or disabled. This is basically an encryption level. Standard is perfectly fine for my use case. Create. And just like that, if it worked, we should be able to traverse my system, which here it is. So I have a large pool over here. Maybe I just want to throw it in there. Next, we'll say we want to run this maybe just once a week. And once you're done, just hit start replication and it'll do it on the schedule you specify. Now I'm not going to do this because I don't want this running and causing overhead while I'm trying to do the rest of the demo, but you guys get the idea. Cloud Sync and rsync, I'm not really going to go over these. A lot of people use rsync to synchronize directories together. I use SyncThing. I will link my video up here of getting that set up. So I'm not really a big rsync user. And smart tests, you'll probably want to add this just so that you are alerted if any of your disks have issues. So what I'm going to do is basically say all disks, type, we'll do a quick or short, and run every day. Save. And just like that, we have snapshot setup, scrubbing, smart tests, and assuming you want to run replications, set up and ready to go. That easy. There's a whole bunch of other things you can do with your storage within TrueNAS and ZFS itself, but I'm not going to cover those again. That would take so long, but you get the basics of it. Now what I want to do is talk about kind of the main feature of Scale. Like I said before, it's built on Linux, so that now we have access to a better virtualization environment than we did using TrueNAS Core and FreeBSD. So let's talk about that. So virtualization, no virtual machines, obviously. Let's go ahead and add one. All right, I actually have to upload my Windows ISO because I forgot to do that before starting this. So give me a minute. So while that's uploading, let me talk about one thing before we get into creating a VM. Now, I know a big thing that people want to do when doing virtualization is GPU pass-through. So I do have two GPUs in this machine. One is being used by the host system, and another one I will be using for GPU pass-through. So the way they want you to do this is go into System Settings first, into Advanced, and down at the bottom here, you'll see Isolated GPU Devices. And you'll want to go into Configure and select the GPU you want to isolate for GPU pass-through. So the AMD one is being used by my host. The 1030 will be used for pass-through. So click that, click Save. All right, now it's good to go. And back into virtualization, add virtual machines. This is going to be a Windows one. Call this one Windows 10. Sure. UEFI, sure, yep, looks good. Display type. Initially, we're going to use VNC. That is until we get our graphics card passed through and set up to use the graphics card. Why virtual CPUs is 2 by default. That's kind of annoying. Change this to 1. Let's give it 4 cores and 8 threads, sure. And we'll give it 8 gigs of RAM. Now for Windows, we will use AHCI. If you're doing this for Linux, probably use VirtIO, but HCI will work for Windows. And specify a location. We're going to put this directly on our pool. And it's Windows, so let's give it 100 gigs. Network setup, we'll just be using a regular Intel adapter type. A MAC address, you can specify this to be whatever you want it to be. And the NIC, so this is a virtualized network interface. If you have other NICs or other interfaces, you can specify them here. And now point to your media. We just uploaded that under Storage Boy, and there it is, Windows ISO. GPU, so this is where you would pass it through. Right now, we're gonna leave it blank. I will get to that once we are done installing Windows. I just think it's a lot simpler to first get Windows initialized and set up, then go ahead and add your GPU after. That worked best for me in testing. Next, yep, so all looks good, save. I'm gonna turn auto start off and run it. So once it's running, we can go down here, go into display. So the reason we can go and click on that display is because we specified VNC or SPICE as our display. And you'll see later when we pass through the GPU and turn off VNC, that option won't be available anymore. So I'm going to run through the Windows installation and do all the updates and stuff. You've seen that a billion times. It's boring. So I will get back to you when this is done. All right, 10 million years later, Windows is installed. I have the GPU passed through. It was relatively painless. It just took a while to do all the updates, but I'll show you the few steps I had to run to do this. So once you have your virtual machine up and running, just pass through the GPU, go back into your VM, go to Edit, scroll all the way to the bottom and select the GPU you want to pass through, which is my GT 1030. Click Save. Then what you're going to want to do is, if you noticed while I was in there, you don't see anywhere to modify the display, and that is kind of one knock on the virtualization setup in TrueNAS Scale, is that all the parameters given to you when creating it aren't available when you edit it. So it's not too intuitive for certain things like changing the display mode or modifying the storage. And in some cases, you can't even change the size of the storage that you allocated, which I wish you could do. But it doesn't seem like you can. So to do this, you actually have to go in to Devices, and here you will see all the devices passed through. I wish there was more detail here on what they are, but this is what you get. So you'll see display is no longer here. That is because I went in and just simply deleted it. And when I passed through GPU, you can see that showed up here. Again, not very intuitive. I wish there was more details here. Even when you click on details, yeah, not too much available. So maybe more details. I like the way Proxmox handles this, so maybe kind of peek off them for that. So like I said, we don't have that VNC display anymore. So when I go in here, yeah, no display. So how do I get to it? Well, choose Windows Remote Access. You can see I'm remoted in now using the IP address of the client or the virtual machine. And you can see my GT 1030 is passed through and recognized and ready to go. If you want to utilize this, I would recommend installing Parsec. I will have a video linked up here. Definitely recommend it if you want to use this as maybe an editing machine or a gaming machine. Parsec's the way to go. But yeah, virtual machine set up with GPU pass-through. Neat. Next thing I want to talk about is apps. And this is a huge improvement over TrueNAS Core in the jail system. Not that the jail system is inherently bad. It's just there's so much more support for using Docker and apps in general. So when you go to here, it's going to ask you for a generic pool to use. We only have one, so let's select that. I guess it's going to configure a data set to store all of the application data in. And you'll notice here, there's what, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 apps, which isn't impressive, I know, but go ahead and add a new catalog. And the one we're going to use is TrueCharts. It is a massive catalog of apps with a huge community supporting it. So what we're going to do is look up TrueCharts. Why this isn't a hyperlink, I don't know. And here are the instructions for getting it added to TrueNAS. Luckily, it's really easy. Just go over here to manage catalogs. As you can see, we only have the one official one. We're going to add catalog. Catalog name, we will call it TrueCharts. And go over to here, get the repository URL. And notice it says use stable and core for the trains and main for the branch. So we'll paste the repository into here, stable and core, main as the branch. Click save, close, and refresh all. This is a huge catalog. This is going to take some time, but when it's done, that doesn't seem right. Okay, so go over to available applications and then click refresh all. What that's going to do is pull in all the applications available from the TrueCharts repository. You can see here it's doing its thing. It will take a couple of minutes, but when it's done, you'll have a crap ton of applications to pick from. All right, that took a hot minute, but as you can see, we have so many apps available now and so many good ones. Vault Warden, Plex, Guacamole, Pi-hole. You can scroll through here. They got the full R stack, Sonar, Radar, LiDAR, all of them, Handbrake, another Guacamole, Nextcloud. As you can see, there's many applications here that are kind of one-click installs. Obviously, there's some parameters you need to enter depending on the application, but you have a lot to pick from. That's for sure. So we could pick one sync thing. That's what I personally use. So if I were to install this and run it as my production or backup server, I'd probably use sync thing. So we can go in here and click install. We'll call it sync thing because that's what it is. Just leave this default. Time zone, we are in Chicago time zone. Man, this is, am I really gonna have to scroll through here to, okay, whatever. Okay, networking and services. Okay, service type, simple. Networking and services, okay, service type. This is for the main service, so we want that on port 8384. This is for the listening service. 22,000 is the default. You can change these. Another listening service, 22,000. Oh, this is what? UDP and TCP. Okay, whoops. I accidentally changed that. Good catch, me. And all these we will leave default, but you can change them. Storage and persistence. Okay, here's where you can add additional storage. So if we wanted to add somewhere on our pool, we can do that. We can call this more data. It'll be on our host, so we will give it a path. We will just throw this on storage boy. The mount path within the container, we will do /more data. Ingress, we're not gonna mess with this. Security and parameters, we will leave this default. Resources and devices, if you want to configure it to mount a USB device, you can do that here. We're not going to do any of that. Same thing with GPU configuration. VPN, if you set up a VPN, you can do that here, which is pretty freaking awesome. I know a lot of people use VPN these days. I do personally, but that is all set up through my router in pfSense. If you want to figure out how to do that, link is up there. Random stuff, no. And confirm options, sure, save. All right, it's up and running. And you can simply just click the web portal here, which is awesome. It'll take you right to the web GUI of it. Here it is. And assuming we set everything up correctly, we can go in here and add folder. And we should have a path, more data, boom. And anything we set up in more data will be stored directly on our pool that we configured before. So neat. But yeah, there's so many applications to pick from. Obviously, I can't go through all of them. It's pretty similar setup, no matter what you pick, depending on the application. Obviously, there's going to be certain configurations you need to do, but for the most part, pretty straightforward. Now, if you don't want to use any of these and you want to just do a regular Docker installation, you can go to launch Docker image, and that'll spin up kind of this GUI setup for just installing a standard Docker image. You can give it a name, click through, specify the image repository, and go through all of your container parameters and spin it up that way. So you're not limited on just using the applications listed here. One thing that I wish they would include, Docker Compose. I wish they would implement an easy to use Docker Compose GUI. Obviously, I know you can go into the CLI and use Docker Compose there, but in the way Portainer handles Docker Compose, I wish they had something like this. So again, do the old cheat sheet off of Portainer and include a Docker Compose GUI. That would be awesome. Personally, I would use it. And for all you people saying, you stop asking for GUI things. Shut up. People like GUIs. Deal with it. Okay, a couple more things I want to touch on before we wrap it up. This reporting tab is freaking sweet. So you can go here and it will give you a bunch of awesome data for your system. You can go look at your disks. I wish there was more here, but you can select your disk. Let's choose, I wish I could choose all of them in one go. Uh-oh. Okay, wait. Yeah, so this looks like it needs some optimization. I like the idea of this. Oh yeah, it's loading one at a time. This might be something to look into, but the base of it's there. Being able to display a lot of cool information is certainly useful. I wish on top of optimizing this, oh my God, it's like freaking hung up. I can't even click on something else. Okay, we're back. I guess don't try to view all the disk reporting in one go, but on top of optimization and fixing that, one thing that would be cool is if you can select like favorites or favorite statistics and kind of build your own reporting interface. I think that would be super handy, but this is an excellent start. And the last thing I want to touch on might be my favorite feature. If you go into settings, general, manage configuration, you can download your configuration file and save it. Here you have your entire configuration for your host backed up. Dear God, Proxmox, take a note of this. I've run Proxmox as my main hypervisor operating system, and while I really like it, there's no simple way to back up your host. It is a complete pain. So the fact that TrueNAS puts in this super easy way to back up your host and then restore from that, thank you. Thank you. Awesome stuff there. But that kind of covers everything I wanted to talk about. I know this video is long. It's probably around 30 minutes at this point. So yeah, I'm going to wrap this up quick. If you want to see more videos on TrueNAS and more in detail about certain things, let me know down in the comments what you want to see. I am certainly open to making some videos on TrueNAS and TrueNAS Scale specifically. So overall thoughts on TrueNAS Scale. I think it's a huge step in the right direction for TrueNAS becoming a one-stop shop hypervisor / NAS operating system. The combination of Linux features with TrueNAS's ZFS implementation make for an extremely usable hypervisor / NAS solution. even with their first release. Is it perfect? Of course not. As we discussed when setting it up, there are a few things I'd like to see improved on, mainly the virtualization features, more customization in the reporting and dashboard pages, and obviously letting us use the rest of our boot drives, because when you install TrueNAS, you basically can't use the rest of that boot drive for anything. Now, I know I included in one of my other TrueNAS Scale videos kind of how to modify the installation script to get around that, but it would just be nice if they included it natively. I have no doubt the TrueNAS devs will continue to improve on their product, and if you want to help out, then feel free to head over to their forums or Discord server where you can chat with many TrueNAS connoisseurs and devs. One thing I didn't cover was the ability for TrueNAS Scale to easily manage many devices through TrueCommand, which sounds awesome for those of you that are ballers and have a bunch of different TrueNAS systems to manage. I'm a little baby fetus YouTuber, so I don't really have multiple systems to use. So, all right, let's go ahead and do comment of the week. This one comes from Cheap Bastard 1988 on my PyNAS Argon Eon video, and he says, looks cool, but not being able to use 4 3.5-inch drives makes me need to pass on this one. It would be ideal if they use the CM4 and use PCIe to SATA setup instead of USB to SATA. I agree 100%. If you haven't seen that video, it's basically a case that lets you turn your Raspberry Pi 4 into a NAS, but they only included physically enough space to fit 2 3.5-inch drives. So it's kind of annoying in that. And you do have to connect via USB. If they would have used the CM4, you can use that 1X PCI slot. So yeah, but hey, it's still an awesome little device for what it is. All right, that's all I have for you today. Let me know down in the comments how you plan on using TrueNAS Scale in your home lab. If you like the video or just want to make me a happy little TrueNAS boy, then drop a like. If you want to see more content like this, then please consider subscribing. I'd like to give a huge shout out to my YouTube members and Patreons. I appreciate every single one of you. And if you made it this far in the video, then you're also the bee's knees. So thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in the next one.